asleep. Welcome to your life, it's time you lived it. There is so much more of you to be. You were planted in a field of dreams. Now you're hidden there beneath the ice and snow. But nothing is as desperate as it seems. My spring is calling you to life, to thrive and grow. It's time to grow. Just for you. Welcome to my heart. Yes, you've been in it. There is so much more. 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 There is so much for you. There is so much more. 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 There is so much more.
Welcome. This is the welcome song, and that was written 2 summers ago. Is that right? 2 summers ago for one of our listeners named Terry, because we were talking about trauma. We were talking about hidden trauma and drama trauma, and how hidden trauma creates a thing where you don't know that you can fully come to life in the earth because there were things that are missing that were never given to you. So people with a lot of hidden trauma, it spirits a sense that they really weren't welcomed into the planet. They weren't really welcomed into the plan of God and the heart of God. And so people who have hidden trauma, those are the things that are never given to you that you need to thrive. Drama traumas are the things that happen to you that you remember, the really scarring, traumatic events that you can put your finger on and say, I remember the day, or I have a terrible memory about this. Hidden trauma is much more subtle, and this is where you have, just drop the phone. This is where you have pain and wounding from things that were never given to you that need to be given to you. It's like being malnourished. It's like being a person who's like a kid in a foreign country and having rickets or something like this, because the nutrients that need to be supplied to a child like that to help them thrive don't exist. And so there's a cannibalizing of the body, really, to try to get and pull nutrients. That's my guess. I'm guessing the body's going to work really hard to pull the nutrients it needs from every resource. And so kids with malnutrition, weaker and weaker and weaker and weaker. And this is what happens when you have hidden trauma. There's a cannibalization of your life, looking, where can I find it? Where can I find this sense that I'm being welcomed into my life and that I have a place, that I'm supposed to be here? And sometimes hidden trauma can occur in unhealthy relationships where you've given yourself over to a friendship and you keep wondering why the affirmation only goes one way. Why the hearing and the sharing and the building up and the effort goes out from you but doesn't come back to you in abusive type relationships or unhealthy type relationships. And it creates a sort of hidden need developing in the relationship that can be very scarring and damaging. And then what happens in that situation is we will find ourselves unconsciously working harder and harder and harder to get something from somebody who's just withholding. It's not a good thing. So there was a gal named Terry, and it was her birthday, and I found myself just playing the guitar. That's me on the track, playing this bossa. Happy birthday to Terry, calling her into life, and then it turned into the welcome song. That's a lot of words to just give you a perspective on why I wrote what I wrote. Welcome to the world, I'm glad you're in it. I've saved a place, it's just for you. Welcome to my heart. Yes, you've been in it. There is so much more of me, meaning God, for you. And this is one of the ways that we talk about healing, is healing from various forms of drama and hidden traumas. And so I just thought I'd pull the song out because I just wanted to refresh us. And I wanted to just give you a little personal thing from my life today. I went out. And this weekend, someone told me a rather disturbing story about what happened to her when she went to a place where we shop without masks and how she was accosted. And really, I mean, this person was even physically approaching her with a lot of anger. And you know what? I determined that my confirmation bias was that every place I go, I set my feet, I walk in favor. But it was very hard not to internalize the sense that, oh my gosh, this is a place where when I go next time, because as this narrative for control of the planet, for the Great Reset, there's a Great Reset happening. They want to reset our banking system, and because it's failing, because President Trump won't play with the central banks, thank goodness. And so they want to do a great global reset. And they want to use the pandemic to say that capitalism doesn't work, so therefore we need this new equity, guaranteed income from the governments, and a whole new way of seeing the world, a whole new economic system, which of course is going to be based on socialism. So there's a full court press to call us into a dark winter and to tell us to mask up and get ready for darkness and get ready for economic implosion. But don't worry, because we've got a solution for you, and it's going to be a great economic reset. And we're going to restructure our banking system to give them even more centralized power. So the pressures to conform in certain areas are increasing. Well, sometimes somebody can say something and they can have an experience, and we can easily internalize that. And because I come from a background of being uncomfortable going places, when Satan would tell me that I wasn't safe, this whole new paradigm has made me be very, very intentional about when I go out and what I do and what my mindset is, because I know that already I'm going to stick out like a sore thumb because I'm not going to be wearing a mask. And so today, I just decided it's not a big deal. I can do it, But there are times when you feel the pressure, and so I said, honey, why don't you go with me to this time? I'm just, it's been a long couple of weeks, And I've been really strong and brave and intentional. I've been going out, doing the things I need to do, looking for opportunities to minister, bringing the kingdom of God, but, on a more limited basis because he loves to run errands. And so I said, why don't you go with me? So long story short, my big, strapping, huge bodyguard of a husband went with me. And the biggest stress was just the fact that his mind works differently in a grocery store than mine does. So there was that spousal conflict over what you buy and how much you need, and do you really need that, and why are you getting that, and why are you running? But it was actually kind of fun, and we did it, and I did it, and it was important and joy filled, and it was a small thing, and it's just another layer, continuing layer of assaulting what makes you uncomfortable, what makes me uncomfortable. There are times when my stress level has been extremely high because I needed to go and confront someone, or I needed to prepare for a performance where I was very worried that I was going to have a stage fright blank out, or where I was going to share my work with another person or open my heart or something like this. So I definitely had those peaked VU meters, which is what you see in electronic sound reinforcement equipment to tell you how loud the signal is. I've definitely had that. But sometimes, my friends, the battle is won by consistent small steps of discomfort, because the payoff's in the discomfort. And this is one of the things we have to learn, that discomfort is our friend. And discomfort is our friend, because discomfort is the wall we push back and we push over. And so I want us all to stay there, because I believe we're going to be, for the better part of a year, at least, in a lot of upheaval, because once the president is declared the president, there will be riots. And then when he's done with that, he's going to take on the central banking system. And that is going to create a lot of crisis. And these people aren't just going to give us our country back and just say, here, go ahead. People who built globalist structures for globalist money, for globalist banking things, for globalist influences, for communism, essentially, to increase, for dependency, for propaganda. They're not just going to give us our country back, or our minds back, or our hearts back. We're going to have to fight for that every step of the way. So like I talked to you earlier in the week, we're in a different weight class now. We are, so much wanted to go back to the, yay, we know who our president is by about midnight on election night, and okay, whatever, it is what it is, right? Well, we're in a whole different paradigm and in a whole different world, and this is the new reality. So can we just talk plainly about it? Can we just say, we're in the second American Revolution? And we thought about what we knew what that meant, but I think it's really going to hit home over the next 5-6 months, as there's going to be continuing a full court press and a full court pressure on us to go with the globalist, communist-inspired narrative for controlling our minds and our hearts, our choices, and our willingness to risk. And I think when you realize that, I think you can begin to gather your resources. Like, depending on where you are, and I certainly think like this, we're going to need food and water. We're going to need to be able to have resources and friendships. We're going to need to be building structures, patriot structures, to know who stands with us and how we can influence our local elections. We're going to have to get up in the faces of our local government officials. Here in New Hampshire, I don't know if I mentioned this yesterday, but we totally knocked it out of the park in all of our statewide elections. We retained the governor's office, and we got the Senate, and we got the House, and we got the Executive Council, and they were very strong margins. And then, even though Trump only lost by 1,500 or so votes in the last election, and there was way more enthusiasm for him now, there was this strange change at the top of the ticket. And so we're going to have to now go in and insist that our state party shows up. Old thinkers, people who are invested in an old system, There's so many people in the country right now that just want Trump to go away so they can go back to their old GOP and keep the graft and the extortion and the game playing and the rules and the good old boys and the good old girls clubs just rolling along. But you can have a Democrat here and a Republican there and back and forth. And that can't be. We have to be thinking in a new way. We have to be the forcing change agents, which means now that there really isn't going back to, oh, that's over. Now we're back to normal. There really isn't going back to normal now. There really isn't. There is now the taking of turf and the exposing of corruption and the reclaiming and the remaking and the refounding of America. And this is also what we learn in the FearFree Life. We tend to want to go and just deal with a thing, a one thing, okay? And then just hope that that's it. That's it. I can go back to my non-confrontational self. Okay, you drag me kicking and screaming into facing something, Lord. But when that's done, I'm going back to me. I'm going back to my default setting of compliance and people pleasing and all these things. What I told you yesterday is once you begin to transcend yourself and deal with something that you've been avoiding, that's when it can get really fun. That's when you can go, wait a minute, what else have I believed that isn't true? We tend to want to go, well, I did that. Now I can go back to my lower run rate, my lower exertion rate. But I'm really realizing, and I want you to realize it too, that those days are over. Those days are over. We have a whole new world opening up before us that's requiring us to be activated, engaged patriots, activated, engaged stewards of our minds, to be on the offense, to be consistently saying, no, I'm going to welcome discomfort. Discomfort is my friend. Change is my friend. And as much as I wish I could go back to the way things were, change is my friend. The pain is useful. The effort is exactly what is going to bring me the greatest payoff. So I remember when I was just starting to grasp some of this. Do you guys remember Curves? Curves, the exercise clubs you could go to. Well, the guy who started Curves was a Christian, and he had Zig Ziglar do a series of motivational CDs for the clients, and I got them. And I have to tell you, Zig, who is gone to be with the Lord, he rocked. He rocked. And one of the things he said was that we say the things like, well, I'm just going to pay the price. I guess I just got to get up and pay the price. I just guess I got to get up and face the music. I guess I just got to get up and muscle my way through it. And he said, I never say that. When I'm heading into a situation that's going to require effort and activation, I say, I guess I'm going to go reap the reward. I guess I'm going to get up, I'm going to exercise, and I'm going to reap the reward. I think I'm going to reap the reward today. I think I'm going to go be uncomfortable just because I can. And there's people who like that. There are people who love confrontation. They thrive on confrontation. They thrive on discomfort. These are the kind of people that don't enjoy exercise until they break out in a massive sweat and their chest is heaving. I'll have what he's having. That can be developed. There are going to be some of us who are going to tend to want to be in stasis. But our calling is to constantly be in the exertion of taking the next place. And why is that? Because that's how our king functions. The kingdom of God is always an increasing kingdom. Ours is, okay, but leave me alone. I'm going to go back to my Oreos and my soap operas because that's the way I like to roll. That's changing. And it's changing for us on a national level. It's changing for us on a kingdom level. We can't do that anymore. If we thought that the cabal was just going to give us back our country, we were very, very wrong. And they're going to the mattresses. They're going all the way. They have all the chips pushed up on the table, and they're going to continue to do that until Trump has sufficiently moved against the central bank system, which is the biggest enemy of all, and the people who are the globalists and on the dark side, they're invested in that system. They've built it for decades and decades and generations, and I mean, even going back to the sinking of the Titanic, there's a case to be made that in the late 1800s there was a full big Enlightenment. People were coming out of Europe and invading Harvard and invading Yale and invading our Christian founded Ivy League universities. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were taking us into the progressive era, the era and into progressive education. They are a steamroller of progress toward their goal. This is thousands of years in the making. Since the beginning of time, the cataclysm between kingdoms, right? Building, and the enemy is just within the reach of a global level of global control. Stunning, 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 stunning. And along comes a man that God has raised up. Why? Because he's raising us up. How much have you learned from somebody who knows how to go in and shake it up and doesn't care what people think? How much have you learned about somebody who's so sure that they have a place in the universe that they're going to wear ugly hair like that every day? I've told you guys this before. The first time I realized Donald Trump was a contender for the nomination of the president, I was like, I can never vote for a guy like that. I mean, a guy that leaves the house every day with hair like that is so unself-aware. I don't think I could ever vote for him. Now I understand what it's about. It's knowing your branding and carrying your branding. So what's your branding, friend? My branding is someone who thrives in risk. I thrive in reinventing myself. I thrive in the creative risk of discomfort. My branding is fear-free living, which means that my payoff is going to consistently be in the discomfort. Because the way you live fear-free is learning to embrace the discomfort of the process of beating another fear every day. And those of you who follow me and do what I say and do something that scares you every day, you know how good it feels, don't you? Don't you? I'm checking my phone. Look at all those hearts. I'm checking my phone right now. Those of you who do what I tell you to do, hey Brenda, and hang in there and keep on keeping on with your progressive change. You know that it's the things that create the most discomfort for you where the biggest payoff is. And you know that once you get some of those under your belt, you don't fear the discomfort as much as you used to. You can run into it. And I know it seems small to many of you who have, endemic trauma and abuse and maybe sexual abuse and stuff, but I want you to know I've been there. I've been in a much more traumatized life situation than I am now. And I worked through so much of that. And now it's down to smaller pieces where I realize that even given all that, Satan is not going to stop every day trying to get me to recede. He is constantly into getting Christians to recede, to become passive, to avoid, to procrastinate, to settle for less, to park in the easy chair of what we think it looks like and stay there. But the branding of God is constant increase, right? The branding of heaven is of the increase of his kingdom there is no end. The government is on his shoulders. God's branding is constantly on the prowl. Our lion is constantly on the prowl, looking for new souls to touch, looking for new arenas to take in, looking for new turf to battle over and take. That's God's branding. So we've got to get into that process of of being restful in the reality that I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. And the sooner you do it, the better. the sooner you do the thing right now that's niggling with you that you don't want to do, that you are really running from, the easier it's going to be for you to actually hit it and hit it hard and move on. Now, some of these things, as we've talked about, if you're talking about high-level confrontation in family structures, you need to be prepared for. You need to get your training and counseling about how to deal with abusers and how to set boundaries and how to change up things and how to, if you came into the world with very, very bad skills and you were trained, because fear teaches us, if you were taught by your fears and your trauma and your relationships to go away quietly and to enable and to make everything okay for everybody else, you're gonna learn to do things differently. But your avoidance of that preparation will be so unhealthy for you. You can jump in to the preparation that you need to make for those bigger things. The counseling appointment you need to call for, the person who needs to walk alongside you, the way you need to deal with your own addiction stuff, right? The healing you need to get, the scripture verses you need to be memorizing, the self-care, the order you can be bringing in your life over other things. I have an amazing friend with an amazing destiny, and she got to be a little bit of a clutter person. She started to fill her life with stuff because there was pain, to the point where she's got so much she wants to do, and she has stuff. I mean, lots of stuff eating up her life. And one of the things we talked about was that she has all these dreams and plans in the creative world and in the business world, which I have no doubt she's capable of and will get to, but she had built a mountain of physical stuff around her to manage. I mean, literally buying things and preparing things. You know, I'll use this in this house, or I'll do this with this. And one of her biggest payoff discomforts has been going into the place where all that stuff is being stored and dealing with the pain that's coming up for her in sorting through her stuff, because the stuff was serving a purpose to insulate her from disappointment. So here's a woman with big dreams, but the most important payoff for her right now is the discomfort of cleaning out her storage thing in the driveway, getting rid of it, taking care of business, getting those resources ready, reestablishing, selling things so she can fund her forward movement, telling her boss, I can't work crazy hours where I'm your rescue now. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm going to take care of me. And what's waiting on the other side of that? Massive change, massive progression, right? Massive movement forward, but a pile of avoided discomfort standing right in her way. And this is what we do. We will project out what we've got to do. Oh my gosh, or we'll project out, when the Supreme Court, when the president, when the indictments, when we see justice, when people are in orange jumpsuits and in Gitmo, and we're back on some sort of gold-backed currency. When, in the meantime, I'm just gonna, right? And a wise people will be saying no, or say, when I confront, when I finally have the courage to leave my husband who beats me up every night. Oh, someday, right? But I can't now because the kids are too little or whatever. And so we put all our eggs in the when the big thing happens basket, knowing full well that we're avoiding all of the preparatory steps we have to take to get us there. Calling the battered woman to shelter and getting educated. Starting to save money so that when you walk out the door, you've got change. Starting to clean out your physical closets and packing a suitcase. Starting to deal with unpaid bills and getting a financial counselor working with you. Starting to get educated about your own particular struggle. When I wanted to defeat stage fright, I bought 6-7 books about how performance anxiety worked, and I decided to learn about it. And then I called up and got coaching from a lady who worked specifically in that environment. And I began to do things to prepare myself. And I began to buy CDs of positive affirmations for my brain to remind myself that I could rewire my brain to support me under stress. But I still didn't do the concert yet. I was still doing little small performances, but I was doing the things. And did you know there was discomfort in each of those steps? There was a hopeful discomfort. The payoff is in the discomfort, and the hope is in the discomfort. The hope is in that little gesture that says, it really does matter that I take care of this business now. So here we are with POTUS and SCOTUS and all this stuff and the central banking system and the cabal and blah, 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 right? And we can project out into the never, never land of the orange jumpsuits and the media takedown and all these things into, well, then. But God is saying, no, not then, now. Have you built a community around you of patriot believers that you can be in a foxhole with? Have you been having those people at your table? Have you been resisting the mind control, the brainwashings, the masks, the stay away from people, don't have people? Have you been calling your Secretary of State? Have you been writing your letters? Are you doing that? Are you building something now? Just line upon line. Are you going out? Are you facing things? Are you sticking your little, head out beyond where you're comfortable on purpose? These are resource building preparations for the larger issues that are going to be super transformational and life changing, like my first big concert, and the high stress. But there was many, many steps along the way that were essential and important to deal with that big, huge fear, to deal with that big issue. And that's where we are. And it's a new weight class. It's a new daily level of resistance into the winds of change in our nation and in our own psyches and in our own souls. To say my new job is that I need to be uncomfortable and willing to be uncomfortable a lot every day. And you'll learn the difference between feeling discomfort and being ruled by fear. They're different. They're not the same thing. Being controlled by fear, being fear-filled, as opposed to fear-free, means that you get to fear-controlled by leaving so many little discomforts unembraced. We become fear-dominated because we lose our tolerance for taking care of business in smaller chunks until it builds and builds and builds and builds. And then we have a real anxiety problem. We have a real panic problem. And we have a real fear problem just pretty much taking over the living room of our life. And you can get a lot done and see a lot of progress in small, important, strategic, consistent steps of embracing discomfort and doing what you don't like to do and learning you're going to be okay. Saying no, saying yes, sticking yourself out there, getting in the car and going somewhere, leaving your house. I was kind of sad because on Sunday I met a young lady. She was the only one actually in the church with a mask. She came up just precious. Turned out it was made completely of lace. So I wouldn't know that from a distance. So it was useless. Masks are useless with viruses anyway. But in terms of any other metric or reason for wearing it, this thing was completely useless. And I said, why are you even wearing it? Because she said, I can breathe through it. I said, oh, okay, but why are you wearing a mask at all? Because even though I have a medical exemption because I'm asthmatic, I just don't want to deal with people challenging me. So here I am going to do this thing where I'm going to put on a fake mask, which is all lace. Anyone looks at her can see it, but somehow she's bowed to a level of conformity that is going to keep some people off her back. And she's decided that's her strategy. And I was really sad because we were in a meeting when she stood up and gave prophetic words to people as part of a team in a body where the value is supposed to be living from heaven and having understanding that authority. And I just didn't have the energy to challenge her at the time. I realized the mask thing is sort of like Solomon's baby. People are coping with structures in their life and how they can earn a living and all these things. So I get that. I get that there are these choices we have to make before God. But I'm going to be the one who challenges us all, including myself, to resist, to push back, to push into the discomfort, to question, to find a better way. And to me, it was very sad that her outcome was, I'm going to do what appears to them to be conformity, so they'll leave me alone. Even though I have a full-on legal medical exemption, I'm going to bow so I can avoid this struggle. I think that's something we have to think very carefully about. I think that is something we have to think very carefully about. The mindset and what the ramifications are. Charlie Shamp said something in his thing this week. By the way, I think that's something really worth listening to. He put it out on November 4th and reiterated the prophetic word that God had given him about Pennsylvania long before the whole corruption in Pennsylvania emerged, which is amazing. And he said, look, pastors and Christians, if you're going to stay in your basement with a mask on because of the pressures of society, what makes you think if the communist influence increases in our country that you're going to have the courage to stand up and say what needs to be said and defend the gospel and call sin sin and call people to repentance and be politically correct? What makes you think that all of a sudden that's just going to come out of nowhere because there's quote unquote a move of God? If we're so unwilling to resist consistently in discomfort relating to anything the enemy is trying to force us into his mold about, what makes you think that somehow we're going to just all turn into Hercules and be these incredibly brave people that take the world on? That's learned, that's trained. So we can in this hour, we can be gathering internal strength and resource by consistent weight-bearing resistance and getting used to the resistance. This is why I need to go in stores and be the only person who looks different. And my next thing is I need now to begin to go make eye contact with people, knowing full well some of them might be really mad at me. I need to train that into myself. I need to train into myself being different. I always knew I was different. But now we're in a day and age where we physically can look different and stick out like a sore thumb when we don't conform. We have to use that as an opportunity to train ourselves as soldiers. Soldiers of the great resistance against the enemy. Soldiers of the kingdom of God to take new ground. Soldiers to push back the darkness. Do you see what I'm saying? It's not easy. I don't like it. I want to go back. I want to do my little thing and go back. I just want it to be better. Nope, we're in a new era. We're in a new era. We're going to have to consistently embrace discomfort. Not fear, discomfort. Discomfort teaches us we don't have to be afraid. Discomfort, when addressed, when dealt with, when resisted, when you do it anyway, actually teaches you you don't have to be afraid. And that's why it's important. And I don't want to hear this any better than anybody else does. because it used to be going out. I didn't like errands anyway. I didn't like going out anyway. Although I minister to a lot of people. Now I see it as my kingdom training to stand up and be different in the face of pressure. Can you see those things in your life where you've been avoiding the smaller things, hoping for the big Cinderella rescue, when there's a lot of stuff right now you need to be dealing with that is actually your training ground and our training ground for the bigger stuff? I think so. So welcome to the world. It's a new one. They're not giving us our country back. Satan's not just giving up his kingdom and giving up his state in your mind without a fight. And we're going to take care of business, aren't we? So let's all go do something that scares us. And I will see